Hey everybody, Jeff Morris here from the Dream Smart Academy. I'm so excited today to introduce, well first, let's thank Turnkey, Patricia, both you and I, for them giving us an opportunity for me to co-host another event and for you to be a speaker on this virtual summit. They have been providing not only engaging content, but transformative content for months now. So I'm so excited to just have and be a part of your emotional immunity. That I'm fascinated by that title, The Power of Positive Engagement. I can't wait to dive into that with you this afternoon. Everybody, if you're not familiar with Miss Patricia Rachel Schwartz, she's an executive coach, she's a facilitator, and she's a trainer. In other words, she's a bad, bad lady. She has over 40 years of experience. She's coached over 5,000 clients in her years, and she has some really unique concepts that I think if you listen and you participate and you stay engaged in the conversation in which she's going to lead you through, it'll be a very transformational afternoon. So looking forward, Patricia, to diving into that with you. Please say hello to everybody really quickly.
All right. So glad to be here. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming on, and thank you, Turnkey, for providing this opportunity and really caring about transformation in the world. And thank you, Jeff, for stepping in to be our host today, because I know that Anissa was not able to be with us at the last minute. And I am really grateful for her vision to create something like this summit, because we are all dealing with a lot of stuff. So here's a little bit of information about me that Jeff just went over.
So let me just give you a little more information about who she is. She's a strength-based coach, as you can read, and she's informed by the latest research in positive psychology. She specializes in leader development, which includes emotional intelligence, which I'm a big proponent of, by the way, Patricia. I think two of the most impactful skills that leaders need in today's 21st century environment is behavioral self-management techniques and social emotional development, wellness, and competency. So I can't wait for you to dive into that, right? Strategic stakeholder engagement, business development, and change leadership. As I mentioned before, she has 40 years of experience in leadership development, business management, over 20 years of coaching, and worked with 5,000 leaders. But I'm really interested, she's going to dive in just a little bit to this created positive psychology-based relationship building for prosperity. Can't wait for her to dive into that. She's also a senior faculty for 14 years in the College of Executive Coaching. Too much to read here, Patricia. I think they got the gist, as I said earlier.
Great.
You're a bad lady.
Thank you. Okay, before I do anything else, before I introduce myself or go over any material, I'm just going to ask you to take a moment and take a breath. Because we've all been somewhere else. Let's just come right here, right now, and look at this beautiful photograph, kind of being up high and getting a perspective. And if you'd like, you can close your eyes. I'm going to ask you to just scan your history a little bit to some different experiences you might have had, and let yourself settle on a best experience, like a peak experience, something where you felt really great. Maybe you felt kind of on top of things, excited, engaged, you were learning things. Just let your mind, settle on one moment in time or one experience that was just really fabulous and you really enjoyed it. Maybe there was something really important to you about it. So now that you've just taken a moment to focus your attention on it, jot down a word, or maybe just remember a word, or you could even jot down a symbol that reminds you of it, because we're going to come back to it. So maybe something that, kind of helps you remember this experience.
And so for those that would like to participate and engage, you can put a comment or your thought in the chat box, and we'll look at that, and we'll have a chance to share with Patricia some of the thoughts and comments that you're putting in the chat box.
Yeah, so at any point. And so before I get into it a little more, let me just say, I'm so happy to hear that there's quite a few of my colleagues on this call. And some of the concepts here, or one of the concepts I want to call out Janine Stewart for, because I think she's on this call. And years ago, we had some wonderful conversations that led me today to the concept, my concept and my view of emotional immunity and what it is. It kind of morphed to Janine from the original way we talked about it, but emotional immunity is what I've settled on. And I just really think it really is wonderful. So, especially in this day and age. So the context of this whole summit, and also what I'm presenting is this period we're in of a ton of external stimuli. It's also a period of, obviously a lot of uncertainty, chaos on so many levels, and VUCA. You've heard, if you've been on any other summit sessions, you may have heard the term VUCA. It stands for, the military coined this in the 50s. It stands for a period of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And certainly we are in that period now. And there's a lot of threat on different levels, sense of threat on so many levels. So many of our structures that we're used to are just not there, or they've morphed, or things are just happening very quickly. There's a pretty big sense of threat out there. So when we have a sense of threat, we actually lose some of our brain power. If we feel threatened, if we experience the feeling of threat, we lose IQ points, we lose some of our brain power. At the same time, we need to be able to think very clearly, and we need our brain power to function in this environment. So this is right there, a pretty big challenge. In this new environment that we're currently in, we need to be able to recognize opportunities, and we need to also be able to innovate, really pivot. Clearly there was, I know at least for me and probably many of you, we just had a few days notice. Okay, this is it. We're not going to be going to work. We're going to be doing things very differently all of a sudden. We had to really move quickly and pivot. Okay. So what can help us keep thinking clearly and creatively, even when all these external factors are basically on some level working against our ability to think clearly? Yeah, how are we going to deal with that? So the issue of the day is, we are all people. There's a lot of crisis and change going on. We react to it. We get emotional. We react on an emotional level. The emotional level we react on is our ancient brain. It is not our newer prefrontal cortex, our thinking function. It is ancient. It is about survival. So here's the thing. For us to be able to help other people, or be there for others, since we're people too, and we're being affected, we need to start with ourselves so that we can be the best that we can be when other people are needing our help. And so how do we deal with this effectively? Okay, well, let's first think about, what do you want? Maybe you want less reactivity from yourself and maybe other people too. Maybe you want more time, more ease, because this is not really a very easeful time for many people. Productivity might be challenged. Maybe you want more diverse participation. Maybe you're working remotely. Maybe you're in some kind of environment. Maybe you are physically in a work environment. Maybe you're in essential services, or you've come back to work, and you want more diverse participation, and you're listening to what's happening with social and economic justice, and you want to do something there, possibly. And maybe that includes inclusivity. Maybe you want to see more inclusivity. Maybe you're a change agent. Maybe you're an external consultant or a coach. Maybe you're an HR director. Maybe you're somebody that works with participation, inclusivity. So maybe you want an increased capacity to handle change, perhaps. Maybe you want increased leadership. So, in thinking about what you want, maybe you want innovation. Maybe you want to be able to innovate. So go ahead and put in the chat box some things that you want that may or may not be on here.
Patricia, why is it important for someone to identify what they want? Tell us the importance of that. You spent some time.
Great question.
Mm.
So, I see Arlene. Thank you, Arlene. University teaching in my field, building community and collaboration among grad students. Because when you know what you want, then you know what you're going towards.
Mm-hmm.
Can either be going towards something or away from something, or just stay where we are and not look in either direction. So if we know what we're going towards and what we want, then we can apply what we learn to actually go in that direction specifically. And that's a place where coaching really helps, because when you know what you want, then you can specifically work with it. And some of the tools I'll share today, you can use if you are a coach, or if you are being coached, or if you are a leader. So that's why it helps to know what you want. Sheila wants to be an advocate for change. Yes, very important. So this is going to help you. You're going to be able to use what I am going to show you and what you're going to experience in order to go towards something that you want. Okay? Let's see if anybody else has any.
So Zara Abdullah also says to help others shine and grow.
Oh yeah, I have to say this is perfect for that. Great. Good to know what you want. Always good to know. Always, we're going to get pulled off from what we want to what we don't want. Mm-hmm. When we know what we want and when we're focused on what we want, we are using our brain power. Even shifting our focus from what we don't want to what we do want takes us out of a threat mode and into a thinking mode. Even just that, just saying, this is what I want, it gets our prefrontal cortex in line. It helps us a lot. It helps us think. So here's what our outcome agenda is for today. I'm going to give you an experience of yourself at your best. And that is a place where you can, on a daily basis, if you want, uncover the treasure trove that you bring to work in life. You can constantly go into that treasure trove. And today you'll have a moment to go into that treasure trove of you at your best. I'm going to give you a surprisingly effective question that will change everything. And I really do mean that. I have been using this question for many years and with thousands of people. And it is kind of remarkable what happens when we help people calm down and go towards something. It's amazing how they can think so much better, all of us. So I'm going to help you open a door to what's possible using this approach, for you. And then you can start thinking about, once you understand how this approach helps you, you can start thinking about your team and your organization. And ideally, you will be willing to choose one small action step that supports you to move forward. Okay. I need to change. Thank you. It's great. Let's see, I'm just going to pull this up. Yep, better understanding and peace. We all need that. Lovely to have my colleagues on this call. Thank you. Some people I know, some people I don't know yet. Okay, so emotional immunity. I'm going to define the two terms that I've used, which is emotional immunity and positive engagement. So emotional immunity, this is my definition, a self-directed state of enhanced immunity from your own and others' reactivity via the experience of your own positive feelings. So when I say that, clearly, this is something you can do independently. It does not require anybody else. It's not dependent on anybody else. It's something you can do no matter what's going on around you. Emotional immunity also is an inoculation for keeping your IQ up, because when you are non-reactive, you keep your IQ up, okay? Your IQ gets destroyed. Your IQ points just go to, down the tubes when you are threatened, because our blood flows out of our brain into our arms and legs. So we can run away from the woolly mammoth, the saber-toothed tiger. So when you keep your IQ, when you keep yourself in a state of immunity from that, you are not going to need to run away, and the blood will stay in your brain and you'll be able to think. And so this is a method for staying there. And this creates greater self-awareness. And as I said, is an independent activity. So you can be independent.
So Patricia, is this a protective state, or is it a reactive state of mind? how would you classify, you know, your emotional immunity? I
It
like
is
that term.
yeah, thank you for that. It's a totally present state of mind,
Mhm.
totally present. And let's say it's a fully conscious, selected attention state of mind
Mhm.
where you select your focus and your attention. So it's an independent state of mind, independent from what's going on externally.
So we're not denying or suppressing a situation. We're just
Right.
taking, it's an awareness that we're trying to create for you to
Yeah.
be present, right? Okay.
Yes, you're shifting your attention.
Absolutely.
Um, and I could do an actual activity. I don't know if I'm going to have time on this call. I'd sure love to do it, but we'll see how we do. That would show you kind of what it is. Okay. So this quote, Viktor Frankl, many of you are probably familiar with Viktor Frankl. He was a Holocaust survivor. He was in like 4 or 5 concentration camps. His parents were killed. His brothers, I mean, like had a lot of horror. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He was a neurologist and a psychiatrist after he, became an adult and everything, and got out. The war ended. So he has some amazing things that he's written and said. You know, when we're no longer able to change the situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. So that's what this is about. It's focusing on ourselves first. It's being the change we want to see in the world. I mean, that's another way to think about it. Being the change we want to see. So negativity and reactivity, other people's negativity or our own negativity and our own reactivity to our own thoughts or to other people, it can keep us from seeing beyond problems or blockages or obstacles to possibilities. So that's where this comes from. It's like, well, if we're really focused on what's not working and threats, we cannot also at the same time focus on what we want and where we're going and what the possibilities are. We just can't. So we've got to do something to change our state of mind. And that's what this process is. So let me define positive engagement. So positive engagement is where we get to after we've done this process that I'm going to take you through in a moment. So positive engagement is the experience of moving towards something that we want versus away from something that we don't want. It's in a group, it's a process of connecting around a common positive vision or goal. It's an experience of oneself, of alignment with what one's purpose and values. With a group, it's an alignment of everybody around something larger. So this is completely scalable. Positive engagement starts with us. And Jeff mentioned my model, relationship building for prosperity, which some of you on this call really, it's great to see even more people that I know on this call. Some of you on this call have experienced my relationship building for prosperity model, and you know that it is a positive engagement model. It's engaging all around oneself as a central core or the organization. So I'm just take a moment here because I'm just going to look at the chat. Inoculation for keeping EQ up. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. That's what I mean when I say inoculation for keeping our, yes, because when we keep our IQ up, we also then can think, and then we can keep our emotional intelligence up as well. Because when we can't think, we lose access to everything. So, all right, so these are my 2 terms. So let's just hear from Einstein for a moment. So we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. So we didn't necessarily create these problems, and we wouldn't necessarily create anything that's necessarily going on in the world. But the idea here is that we've got to find a way to step out of where we are and get a perspective. And so that's really the purpose, is how do we get a perspective? How do we get a perspective on this? Okay, so I am now going to take you through an experience in a moment. And this experience is the crux of this tool. The tool is called the Peak Experience Question, or the Best Experience Question. This is an open source tool, but the way that I use it, I've developed it to a certain point, and I've trained many, many coaches to use it in a certain way once we've had the experience. And that's what I'm going to take you through, is once we do the peak experience, there's some ways you can benefit from this and really maximize it in an amazing way that I just discovered by just by being involved with it. So you can just get comfortable. I'm going to start talking you through an experience. Okay. So take a breath. Feel yourself sitting in your chair, get kind of grounded. And I'd like you to, again, remember that I did this in the beginning of the call. I asked you to sort of put your mind on something that was a good experience or a best experience in the past. If you want, you can choose that one or a different one. So I'd like you to scan your history again, and you could land on that one or another one. So recalling an experience you've had in your professional, your academic, your community life, just bringing it to mind. This experience might be a time when you realized how important your role or your work was. Maybe it was a time where you felt most alive, most involved, most connected to your values. A time where you felt really excited about what you were involved in. What made it exciting or moving? Let yourself explore it. In your thinking, explore what made it exciting or moving for you. Notice who was involved. Remember who was involved in this experience. And remember the feelings and thoughts you had. What feelings and thoughts did you have? Let those come up. Okay. So now you can open your eyes, come on back. So I'm going to ask you now to look inside, just check in. What feelings do you notice right now? Because you just recalled your best experience. When you think about that experience, what feelings do you notice? And you can post any words that convey how you felt in that experience and how you feel now because you've remembered it, and post those in the chat box. You could just feeling words. It might, anything like happy, accomplished, successful, delighted, joyful. I mean, any feeling words that you can.
So right now we have pride, we have love, we have happy, we have strong, we have relieved, we have accomplished, and they keep rolling in.
Great. Yeah, keep on posting your words. Empowered, great,
accomplished, joyful, inspired, the big word.
Great. Okay. So you can see that you felt a lot of different feelings from doing that, and you're feeling them now. You felt them maybe a second ago, and you're aware of them, those feelings. Okay, now a question. What strengths, values, and passions do you notice that were in your story? Like what strengths came out as you thought about this past experience and this peak experience? What do you notice about yourself that were your strengths? You could put individual words, your talents, your passions, your values. You put individual words in there that, yeah, awesome, I can do it. That's exactly the kind of thing. Like, just go ahead and post in the chat box
I see
what you're identifying.
Self-discipline, joyful, enjoying the moment, peace.
What other strengths, values, or passions? Like, did you notice certain kinds of strengths? Strength within, commitment. What other strengths? What passions? Technical expertise? Yeah. Some of these things where you were strong, and it's really okay right now. We're suspending humility right now. That's for, 5 minutes. We're just going to suspend humility so that you can actually access who you are at your best and what strengths and passions and talents You identified, ability to integrate my past and my present. Yeah, and you can write these in any way that makes sense for you. Like, did you have really good communication skills? Were you really brave, courageous? Were you risk-taking? What were you? You were giving. Okay, these are the kinds of things to really connect with. Who were you? Who were you in that experience? Okay. So right now, the interesting thing is that I asked you to post what feelings you had. So I'm going to ask you this, and you could just put yes in the chat box or something in the chat box if you want. As you recalled your experience, your peak experience, and you thought about it, did you feel those feelings? And so therefore, I'm going to ask you, did you feel those feelings a couple minutes ago, a couple moments ago? The actual feelings of feeling accomplished as you recalled your experience, feeling happy, did you actually feel those feelings right now? Like, can you identify that you felt those feelings? Wow, heart was beating fast. Okay, that is awesome.
Right, I see that one.
Yeah.
Got some
Okay,
yeses in there.
that's great. Okay, so the coolest thing, and you know, some of you who I've worked with for a long time, I'm grateful that you're on this call. And so you know that this is my thing. This is the reality. When we recall something, a positive experience, we actually get the feelings now. We actually have them now. Okay, so we actually can identify also our strengths by remembering a story or by somebody asking us, you know, in the ideal world, actually, you do this with another person or a group where you ask somebody else the question and they answer and they ask you. I mean, that's the ideal, because then you're listening to somebody and you're really right there. And it's called a peak experience interview. That's the ideal world, and it's really easy to identify strengths in somebody else when you're listening to their story. So here I'm asking you to identify strengths in yourself, which is sometimes a little harder, but I know you can do it, and you did it. The point is that a peak story that you have is a treasure trove of you at your best, your strengths, your values, your passions, and your positive feelings. It is your treasure chest. You could open this every day. You could just simply recall that experience that you just recalled or another one. And you could just sit with it for 20 seconds. And you could ask yourself, how do I feel? What strengths were in that experience? What were my natural talents in that experience? What passions can I see about myself in that experience? What are my values that really came out and I was able to express them? So that is your treasure trove, and that is the foundation. This is the foundation for a good part of my work. So let's talk about the difference it makes. When you do that, even for 20 seconds or even 10, you can even do this in 10 seconds, which is remarkable. It helps you feel good. And what happens when you feel good? Well, you have a dopamine hit. Dopamine is a happy chemical. That's why they call marijuana, they used to call marijuana dope. It's because it releases dopamine. So dopamine is a happy chemical. When you feel good, your entire physiological system shifts. It shifts from threat to presence and thinking clearly, okay? But there's some other really big differences it makes. Besides reducing stress and making you less reactive, it is contagious. Your feelings, your actual emotions are contagious to the other people around you. And I mean, not just physically around you. So there's research about physical emotional contagion and how far it extends. And it's something like X amount of feet or something, like it physically extends. But also there's research about our circles of influence, our networks, like the closest network to us versus the one that's outside of that closest group of colleagues and friends versus the next one. In all those concentric circles, there is a percentage of your emotions that the people in those circles actually experience. It is truly contagious. So one of the most positive things we can do to create peace in the world and to create joy and to help people think clearly is to do this process of recalling our peak experience and therefore getting access into feeling good and thinking more clearly and getting back our prefrontal cortex, our brain, getting our brain back online. because when we do all of that, everybody else has a chance at that too, because they feel good and that helps them get their brain back online. It's kind of amazing, and it reduces their stress. This is remarkable. So we can then be a positive influence, because if we're thinking more clearly, and not just more clearly, but also more creatively. So Barbara Fredrickson has done an enormous amount of research on positive feelings, positive thoughts and positive feelings. And this positive thoughts and positive feelings, when we have them for a certain short, very brief period of time, we actually, our ear bones move, and we have, and our eyes move a little bit, and we have greater peripheral vision, and we have more physical space in our brain for synaptic connections, according to her broaden and build theory. Okay. So this process also contributes physiologically to our health. So by doing this process, you are becoming healthier. You are literally building your emotional resilience, but also physical resilience, your ability to come back more quickly from a, kind of a reactive mode or a negative experience. So she did a lot of research on that. And so did Martin Seligman, who, those of you who are interested in positive psychology, a lot of this work is based in positive psychology. Martin Seligman was considered the founder or the father of positive psychology. So he has a well-being theory, and he did some of his research is on this process and how this process contributes to well-being. This process that I'm doing, the peak experience question, again, is from appreciative inquiry, from the realm of appreciative inquiry. That's where this actual question comes from. So it contributes specifically to well-being, and there's great research you can read about that.
So Patricia, before you move on, I want to ask you a question. So with this peak experience, I know you said this can be done in as little as 10 seconds. Is there an optimal time, 3 to 5 minutes? Should we do it once a day, twice a day? I mean, what would you say is, because we're all busy people.
Yep. Thank you for asking that. Thank you for asking that. And my clients who are on the call and former clients know that I suggest that, based in research, you do this for 10 to 20 seconds, at least 4 to 5 times a day, and that you set your smartphone. So you set an alert, because if you do this 4 to 5 times a day and you do it at easy times, like right when you wake up and right when you go to sleep, that's 2. When you eat lunch, that's 3. And then you just have to find 2 more that are really easy. Take 10 seconds and remember this. You start building the connection between your amygdala, the ancient brain, and your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain. When you build that connection, then all these positive things happen that I'm going to talk about in a moment here. But that's what's really important is you're building, we don't have muscles in our brain. We have these connectors. So you're building the strength of the connection between 2 parts of your brain. And basically, just like this quote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So in the session today, I'm talking about the first part. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And the second part, in that space is our power to choose our response. Okay. And then yes, obviously in our response lies our growth. But that second line, in that space is our power to choose our response. So when you do this 4 to 5 times a day over time, like maybe, 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks or less, you'll actually start to notice that it's easier for you to shift your attention at will. Because what you're doing when you do this is you are shifting your attention. You're simply deciding to focus your attention on something. Like, oh, okay, well, oh gee, my smartphone went off. I'm looking at my watch now. My smartphone went off. I'm going to focus on my peak experience. So you're choosing a focus. That choice, that moment of selecting your focus is what strengthens that connection. So then you just notice you get better at it. Like somebody comes in and they're irate, you're at work, or they're upset, or a colleague is like complaining, or something's happening. And you just go, oh, that person's complaining. Like you just have a little bit more space to notice and choose your response. And they've actually, in some research at the Neuro Leadership Institute, they have identified that the amount of space is 1/4 of a second more. They've actually identified you have 1/4 of a second more to make a decision about what you want to do with the external or really internal stimulus. Do you want to go with it, go down the rabbit hole? Or do you want to stay there and decide, you know, this person looks like they might need some support right now. So that's a different way of dealing with, that's a response versus a reaction. Oh, how annoying. I don't like when they come in and complain. So it completely changes our ability to deal with our present moment. That's a long answer to your question, but it's something I wanted to talk about anyway.
What I'm hearing you say is, especially in neuroscience, you know, being a student of what you're studying, we're building and connecting neural pathways, right? We're strengthening a muscle memory ability to respond more appropriately based on your exercise. This is phenomenal stuff. Thank you, Patricia, for sharing.
You're welcome. So we want to adapt. So if you want to, okay, so let me just say something first. There are many applications. However, what I found fascinating about this is if you are going to do something that is a risk in some way, like you're going to take a risk, or you just, you know, let's say you've been practicing this, but you're also about to go talk to your boss or have a challenging conversation or ask for something. You can also, in addition to doing this 4 to 5 times a day, I recommend doing this right before you do something like that. Even right before you interact with somebody, it's a helpful thing to do. Because anybody that you're going to interact with is going to want to have some benefit, right? they're going to get this benefit. They're going to get this benefit. If you do this first and you go in there, they're going to benefit because they're going to pick up your emotional contagion and they're going to feel more relaxed and better. Let me just look at this chat. How can we use this process technique in a group coaching? Oh, yeah. Remember that question for a moment, okay? How can we use this in group coaching? Because absolutely, I use this a lot. Well, I use it with team coaching. You can use, team coaching is differentiated from group coaching. The way it's differentiated is team coaching is where it's an intact team of some sort, like they're working together in the same situation. It could be even a volunteer team. Group coaching are people who are coming together around a common desire to learn a certain thing or be coached on a certain thing. So they might not be in the same company. They could be in a professional association or somewhere else, but that's group coaching, a group of people who are not necessarily working in the same company. So Zara, let me ask you, are you talking about group coaching or team coaching? And then I'll answer that more specifically. Okay, so when you are about to do something and you think about this process, it can give you, if you know that the process something you're about to do, like, well, let's say you're about to make a speech to, you know, a room full of people, and you have your peak experience in it when you recalled your feelings and your, you know, your values and your passions and your strengths. One of them that came up was confidence. Let's say one of them was confidence and maybe another one was calm. And these are just examples. But you're going to go make a speech. Well, confidence and calm would be good things to have when you're about to make a speech. So if you recall your peak experience right before doing that and access those feelings, you will start to turn your physiology around and it will change your actual physiological balance. So you will have more confidence and more calm. Just because, according to Barbara Fredrickson, because you thought a positive thought, which was recalling your experience, and then you felt the attendant feelings, which were confidence and calm. Then your body changes, your physiology changes, and it puts you in that place of confidence and calm. So it has a lot of uses. So adapting the question to a situation. If you're doing, okay, let me see if I got the answer here. I'm just gonna look on the chat for a second.
He did.
Team coaching. Great, yes, love team coaching with this. Okay, and perfect timing, Zara. So tell me about, so what you can do is you can take the question I asked you, which is a general question about your best experience, and you can create a theme with this question. Tell me about your best experience on a team. So when you want to work with a team and get them to work better together, get them to be innovative, and I do this quite a bit with teams. Some people on this call have experienced this. So each person, the people on the team pair up and they ask each other and listen to the answers in pairs of this question and some other questions. This is the key question. This is the absolute foundation. Tell me about your best experience on a team and tell me what was going on and place where you know, really felt great. You were, you know, on top of your game. You were really engaged and involved. And so they tell you a story. Then you look into this, you either as a group or individually and in the dyads, you actually ask the person, well, what strengths do you think came up in your story? So when you ask other people that, they start to look into their strengths, and you as the listener can share, well, I also noticed this strength and that strength. So when you do that in pairs, then everybody comes back together. They can introduce each other by their story, and they can share some of the strengths that came up. And if there's ideally a facilitator there, somebody like me, this is what I do, we will be capturing those strengths. And eventually then during this session, this usually happens at a retreat, the team, it has a goal. They have something they need to accomplish. And then we can ask the question, so look, we have all these 30 strengths that you guys have here that we heard from your stories, plus you got to know each other better. How might we use these strengths to apply to the things you've identified that you want to make sure you do, your goals for this team? And it is such a powerful experience for everybody, because they can quickly be innovative, because they've all stepped into that possibility space. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
It makes sense to me, Patricia.
Great. All right. And you can also, like, if you need to work with people on engagement, great. You're welcome, Zara. If you're working with people on engagement, like, for example, you're working with a board of directors who needs to engage major donors, or they need to staff who needs to engage their board, or in a nonprofit organization, or leaders who need to engage their teams. You can ask this question, you know, what's your best experience engaging others? And you get the strengths that people have, and they feel confident. People then feel more confident. So that's what's great, is they identify their strengths in certain areas, and they're much more able to move forward from a strengths place, because they know they're carrying their strengths. Kind of, I think about it as that new snow. They're tromping into the new snow, but they've got all their provisions with them. It feels a lot better to have your provisions when you're going into this new territory, right? So again, some applications. Recall your own story first. Always start with yourself. You know, that's the most important thing. You're a leader, you're an HR director, you're a business, nonprofit leader. Recall your own story first. You could simply do something like go to 3 other people at work and just ask them, or on Zoom, have a Zoom coffee with some people at work. One-on-one, I would say, do this first one-on-one, and ask, you know, a person, like, tell me about your best experience in our organization. You could just do it that way. Or tell me about your best experience on a team. I'd love to hear it. You know, tell me a whole story. And then they tell you a story. I mean, or at a team meeting, you can ask, instead of everybody just going around checking in, that thing that everybody does, you can ask, so since our last meeting, you all had things you were going to do. Let's hear what went well specifically. What's a positive outcome from what you did between our last meeting and this? Tell us your positive results. Even if there were other results that didn't work as well, I want to hear right now positive results. So if you're leading a team, you can do that. Now here's a really interesting thing that is also research-based. Before any kind of conversation, but specifically a difficult conversation, if you can think about the person you're going to talk with and think of them in terms of them at their best, think about their strengths, think about, even if there's 10 things that bother you about them, if there are 2 things that you really like about them, access those and think about those and put attention and focus onto those 2 things you like about them and you appreciate about them, and then have the conversation. Research shows it completely changes the conversation, it in a positive way, to just simply, and there's actually a name for it, it's called strengths priming. It's called strengths priming, okay? When you prime yourself, and I just became a strengths-based coach, officially certified, so that was one of the questions on the exam. Okay, so, and also just anytime you're putting yourself out there, okay? So we have, oh, go ahead, sorry, Jeff.
Strengths priming, that's a new term.
Yeah, it's really a great concept. And what I did with you all in the beginning of this call is I did a peak experience priming, where I just had you just kind of go there for a moment, just to start getting comfortable, because this stuff is, you know, for people who've never done it, it's pretty different. We spend most of our time on what's not working and on our problems. So to ask people to spend time on something good is kind of unusual, but it truly will change the world. It truly will, because it makes us more able to access our creative thinking and our innovation. And that's what we need right now. We need to be able to think clearly, creatively, not react to other people, be able to help people in a very present kind of way. So that's what this whole process is about. And over time, you are going to become more able to notice. You'll have that extra quarter of a second. If you do this process for a few weeks, you'll become more able to notice when something is happening externally that you need to maybe be creative about or think differently about. And you'll be able to shift your focus. And I often ask my clients after working with them for a while, you know, what do you notice? Yeah, I noticed I stopped myself. That's great. Okay, here we are at the action step. So what's something you'll do? A small step you could take, you know, just what's something that you would be willing to do? Something small. And if you would put it in the chat box, and also think about who could support you. Like, do you have somebody at work who could support you? You tell them, I'm going to do this. Or, you know, a friend or somebody who could support you for your accountability. So let's see in the chat box, what's something that you'd be willing to do with this? Now I'll give you some time to think about it and put in the chat box.
So while other people are going and thinking about this, what they're going to put in the chat box, Patricia, earlier, I wanted to have you just share a little more about why perspective is so important. You mentioned that a couple of times on, you know, during your presentation. Talk about the importance of perspective and why it matters.
Yeah, because we can get really, really narrowly focused, and we can forget. We can forget all the positive things that are happening, all the things we're grateful for, and everything that is working. And so when we do focus on the positive things that are happening, where we're going, what's working, what we want, that gives us literally, it shifts our ear bones, as I said, and gives us peripheral vision, which actually physically gives us more perspective. We have a wide angle view instead of this zoom, narrow focus view, which is what happens when we're threatened. So we literally get a wider view, and that helps us see all the things that are contributing, both in a positive way, in a negative way, and also in a neutral way. What are all the contributing factors? Because we can think more clearly. So thinking more clearly is a prerequisite to getting a perspective. And this helps you think more clearly. Oh, Nathan says, I'm looking at taking a positive psychology course. By the way, I'm not the most positive person. Okay, that's okay. And the College of Executive Coaching offers a positive psychology and wellness course for coaches, or for anybody. It doesn't have to, you don't have to be a coach. But anyway, Nathan, thank you for saying that. Okay, so hopefully you guys have come up with an action step. And I know some people told me they had to go sooner. So that's not a problem. So let's see. Okay. I'm not able to see all the attendees on this list, only the panelists. Wait a second. I'm not really able to see the attendees. Okay. So let's see. I'm just looking here. All right. Willing to slow down, think before reacting. That's great. That's what this process will help you do. Okay. So what's something you're taking away from this? Maybe an insight, a realization, you know, something that it could be one word, or it could be how you feel right now. Just from doing this, you know, do you feel more something? Do you feel differently than you did when you started this call? What are you walking away with? What's an insight or a feeling that you have? And please post. More resources than I thought that I had prior to this call. Okay, thank you. Tanya, College of Executive Coaching. Thank you. Enthusiasm. Thank you. Okay, we're sharing this question with others. That's great. All right, wonderful. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so here are two special offers. These are generally for new clients, but it's okay. Two special offers. So one is a complimentary follow-up call, and just to discuss how you might carry this forward into your organization or your company. And the second is 10% off your next team offsite. If you are going to be having offsites, I'm happy to give you off if you mention this presentation. and happy to have a complimentary follow-up call. So, and anybody is welcome to have the complimentary follow-up call, of course. Totally welcome to have either of these. Zara, feel a lot to learn. Just knew about strengths priming. Just found out about strengths priming. Okay, great. All right, feeling happy. That's good. That's wonderful. And here is my contact information. You know, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not already connected. And there's my office information, my email, and my website. And Arlene, thank you, Patricia, for your inspirational talk. I hope part of the next book. Yes. Yeah, well, it's definitely this is definitely in my book on relationship building for prosperity. It's definitely in it. And this is really great to see all of you here who are, you know, many colleagues and some people that I've not met yet. So I hoped that I will meet you. And again, feel free to contact me if you'd like to talk more about any of this. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff.
Everybody, if we could give Patricia a virtual hand clap and a high five. Phenomenal presentation, Patricia. I'm going to give you my takeaways before we go.
Okay, yes, please. Sorry, I didn't ask you. I should have.
I've been taking notes, so when I have my head down, Pete's story, me at my best, my strengths, my values, my passions, my commitment. And I heard you say, stay in the moment, right? And the more you practice this, the more it becomes muscle memory for you. You get a quarter second, and that quarter second can help you make the best choice for the situation at hand. Emotional immunity was very powerful. The difference between team and group coaching, that was very good. And then strengths priming were some of my most impactful takeaways. So thank you for your time today. One last thought before we end the call. Anybody? Put it in the chat box before we leave. Bravo, Patricia from Arlene. Thank you, Patricia from Zara. Norbert, thank you, Patricia. Good to see you. This was really helpful from Tanya. I can definitely use this tonight. Very powerful presentation. I'll leave the last words with you and then we'll wrap it up.
All right. Thank you, everybody, so much. Really enjoyed being able to talk about this, which is such an important part of my work, my life, and my purpose is to share this information and see who I can help with this. So thank you so much, everybody, and I look forward to seeing all of you in person at some point. That would be really great. All right. Take care, everybody.
To the Turnkey team, Sheila, Paige, and Anissa, thank you for allowing me to co-host. We'll look forward to seeing the next speaker. Take care, everybody. See you soon.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
All righty.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate it. All right.